thank you for being here. Today we're talking about 3 ways that writing can help us create the person that we've always wanted to be. Over the past 10 years, I have been writing off and on again, more on than off, but writing what is going on in my life, what I think about life, what is happening, what I want to happen, has really brought me to this point where I feel like I can connect to myself quicker and understand what I'm feeling at a faster pace and also at a deeper level. We're talking about 3 different ways we can start this practice during this journey of rewiring and refocusing on the person that we want to be. So the first thing that I really started doing about 5 years ago was creating gratitude lists. Now, this is something that you may have heard of or may not have heard of, but a gratitude list is basically writing down what you're grateful for, as the name indicates. It is writing down what in this moment, in this life, in this lifetime, you are grateful for. And now what this does is it shifts you from this perspective of constantly feeling like things aren't enough or wanting things to be better or different to realizing what it is that you do have. Now, if you're watching this video, there's probably a lot of things that you're grateful for and can choose to look at instead of all of these things that you don't have. And many days when I first started doing this practice, I would spend like 15-20 minutes just writing it down, and I'd have 2 full pages of things that I'm grateful for. And I would try to make it different from the day before, but many times there was similar overlap to the day-to-day. And I would do this in the morning, and it would refocus my energy for the rest of the day, how I went into that day, because I was really looking at life from this perspective of I have a lot going for me and I'm just trying to create a greater abundance. And not because I don't like what I have, but because I do, and I want to just give more of that to the world by accepting and being appreciative of what I already have. Now, the world that we live in is constantly telling you that you're not enough, that what you are doing isn't enough, that who you are being isn't good enough. But what you can start to realize is that you have more than enough. You don't need that next shirt. You don't need an extra pair of shorts. You have what you need. And if you can start looking at being grateful for food and water and shelter and having a job, it will help you shift your view on this life that you have, that you want to change, by looking at what it is that it's providing you right now. If you're at a job that you don't like, it's at least providing you, and this is not a very small thing, a place to live, food to eat, a thing to do, and a thing that is giving you this perspective that you don't want it anymore. And that is pretty important as well. So write down what it is that you're grateful for, because we have to cultivate an appreciation for what we already have if we want to build more. How much would you want to continue to give your friend gifts if they're just like, really, this is it? This is all I'm getting? You're just getting me a cake and balloons and a card? How willing would you be to give this friend even more? How ready would you be to give them another gift or an even bigger gift, or throw them a party? Probably not very much. And this is how we have to look at the things that we have in the life that we have. It's a friend that we need to appreciate so that we can continue to grow that friendship and that relationship. That life that you want, that new life, is a relationship that you're building. So instead of looking at how little you have right now and how little you're showing up with, look at how much you actually have. Now, what if you were that friend? How quickly would your friend stick around if you were like, yeah, this is just not enough? I wanted a huge party with hundreds of people and a limo and the big dress, and you only came with a card that you customized and spent hours working on? That's not enough. And if you're on the opposite side of that, you don't want to be around that person anymore. And you also don't want to be around the person that's constantly minimizing what they've given you as well. If you're like, if you give someone a compliment and they're like, hey, hey, you look really great, I love what you do with your hair, and they're like, oh no, this, like, my hair looks awful, like, I hate how it looked today, like, it just is terrible. You don't really want to give them any more compliments. You feel awkward, they feel awkward, and it's just weird, and this could have been a quick exchange. So be appreciative of what you have. Be accepting that this is what you have, and it's not that it's not enough, but it's what you have, and you're grateful for it. When somebody offers you a compliment, say thank you and move on. Just like what you have. This is a moment in time where you're stepping in and you're saying, I'm grateful for this, I enjoy this, and then you're moving on. You're not to stay in this narrative for the entire day. It's just meant to reframe you in that moment. And it doesn't have to be a 10-page long I am grateful for list. It could just as easily be 3 things, 2 things, 1 thing. But make this a practice that you keep going back to. And I can tell that when I was doing this very regularly in my life, I was a lot calmer and I was a lot more able to delve into the harder stuff that I needed to work through in my life. The past things that I'd been through, it was a lot easier to look at those once I had this foundation of things that I was grateful for and excited to be around. So the second thing we're going to do with this writing practice is talk about our day to ourselves. Many people have said, and quite a few of the biggest ones is, Anne Frank said, paper is more patient than people, and that is the truth. Try to get all of these huge emotions, all of these difficult things that you're going through on paper and process it through a piece of paper. I heard someone say, if I gave you a math problem with a lot of numbers in it, like 357 plus 249, what would you need to solve that? And you would most likely say a paper and a pen. Why aren't we doing this for the bigger problems in our own life? If you can take some time every day to reflect on how you were feeling, what wasn't working, what was working, how did you teach someone something, how did you learn something, how did you process your day, how can you reflect on that day? So we can do our gratitude list in the morning, but then maybe at the end of the day we can look at, all right, what did happen today? What worked, what didn't work, and how can I step into that moment and process it through again? If I was to be faced with this problem 5 hours later, now that I'm this more evolved person, more aware person, how would I deal with this problem then? And then accept that you didn't do it that way in the moment, but that now you have a better foundation of dealing with it in the future. And you may not come up with the greatest solution ever, but at least you'll work through it. A lot of us will call up our friend and talk to them about our problems, or capture a coworker and dump all of it on them, or talk to our partners and throw everything on them. But the thing is that it's none of these people's responsibility to deal with and to process what you were going through in your heart and in your mind. And you are the one that has to take the time to go through it, to be present with it, to walk through these emotions, through these feelings, through these thoughts, and realize that these thoughts are your problem to deal with. I had the other day a thought, like I didn't receive a text in a few hours, and I was like, oh my God, like something must have happened, like what's going on, like going off this deep end. And I had to pull myself back and be like, there's a few things you can do here. You can reach out to them yourself, you can give them a call, you can chill out, because you do not know if this reality that you're freaking out about is even happening. And if it is happening, you'll deal with it then. But you can't do anything about it right now, other than the things that you can do about it. Can you reach out? Does it make sense to reach out? And if it does, go ahead and do that. If it doesn't, then just stay put and realize where this emotion is coming from. Is it because in the past when people didn't reach out to you, they never reached out again? Is it because your parents were always on top of you, needing information from you, so you're always constantly giving it to them? And realize that it's not that person's problem to satisfy those needs or those questions that you have. Just like we don't have to answer every other person's questions or take on their responsibility of their emotion, you cannot expect that of other people. So sit with the emotion and then write it down. Why are you feeling this way? What's coming up? What's deeper behind this question? And if you don't know, spend some time thinking about it. You might not know for another few days or even a few years, but at least you're bringing it up to yourself, and that awareness will give you your power back. Becoming aware of why we do what we do will give us our power back. And the more writing we have, the more perspective it'll give us. And the more time we spend with ourselves, the more we're going to want to do that. So many people are trying to outrun themselves, trying to do everything but spend time alone. I know plenty of people who hate being alone. They do not like being alone for a night or for a few hours. And the reality is that even if there is someone next to you, you are alone. And when you are alone, you actually give yourself the ability to figure out where your energy lies. How are you feeling? And you are not reorientating how you're feeling to somebody else. And if you've lived with someone, if you've had roommates, you know that the way they feel affects how you feel, and how you feel is going to affect them because of how you're communicating, how you're talking, how you're going about the space. It is affecting them. So if you can find a space where you can step into how you actually feel, recenter with yourself, refocus on what it is that is your priority, you'll be able to show up even better for that person you live with or your roommates and people at large, those that don't live in your house. So look at life from that perspective. This is so that you can be better for you, so ultimately you're better for other people. Enjoy your own company, because that is the only person who is going to be with you through every single thing that you're going through in this world. And as time goes on, as more pages are filled, the process of transformation will be happening within you. You may not feel it after the first or the second time, but as a week goes by, as a few weeks go by, you'll start to realize that this relationship you've built with yourself through writing has been cataloged in these notebooks, in these pages. And funnily enough, I have written 30 plus notebooks at least, and I do not go back to almost any of them ever, because I'm always focused on the next thing that I need to write, to complete, to figure out. And that is where you're going to get as well. In the beginning, you may look through your journal, but eventually you might get to a point where you are just continuing, where the actual process is happening and getting it out onto the page, and not in the going back through it. And someday I may go through it just to see how far I've come, but on a day-to-day, it is mostly the processing of my emotions that is happening through those pages. And that is the most important part. But you'll get there. Just start with writing about how your day is, and I'll leave a few questions you can ask yourself down below. Now, the third thing that we need to do to get to that next version of ourselves is realize what lessons we have actually figured out. What have we done up until this point to get us to this point? What worked? What didn't work? Write out some lessons. And this was one of the first things I did when I really started getting into journaling or writing, or however you want to call it, is I wrote down hundreds of lessons. And some of them can be the stereotypical, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. It could be that. It could be much more specific to how people ran meetings that I didn't agree with, or how people wrote agendas that I thought could be better. It could be anything, and it should be, because you're constantly learning. If you're living with someone, if you're at a new job, you're constantly learning, but you're doing this anyway. If you go to the store and you run into someone that you don't like because you just wanted to get to that aisle and you were like, fine, I'll just go past them, and you had a weird interaction, you've learned something. If there is another way to go without having to get somebody to do something for you, go that way. And at the end of the day, all of these lessons are really just creating the foundation and the new you. These lessons are the building blocks into this version of you that is excited about this life, that is excited about the world around you, because now you've learned how to navigate it. These lessons are your navigational beacon. They are telling you where to go and what didn't work. But if you don't know that, if you're not keeping track of it, those lessons may not be as clear, so you're relearning them. Have you ever had to go through the same experience, it feels like 15 times, before you're like, all right, once I see that red flag of they're talking about me to other people, I just have to stop being friends with them. That's it. I have to move on from that relationship. And that may be a hard lesson to accept, but it is going to repeat itself until you have cemented it into your day-to-day, until you've cemented it into who you are. So write these lessons as they're happening. Now, this is easier said than done, potentially, because we might be like struggling to come up with lessons, but they don't have to be complicated. Maybe the lesson is you actually get up when the alarm goes off. Otherwise, you're going to be in bed for another 15 minutes and you won't be able to work out. That's an important lesson to have with you that you may not have written down, but if you do write it down, you'll actually see your progress. The more lessons you come up with, the more progress will exist on this page that you're writing. So how can this progress shape your life? Well, what progress are you making? Are you making healthier meals? Have you learned how to cook better for you, for who you're living with? How are you taking steps to be a better version of you? And write them down. If you learn how to make 3 new dishes, why don't you write down how you felt after, or the meal that it was in itself? The lesson could be, I learned that I like rice with a veggie salad and some beans, and that's my favorite salad, and it's easy to make and it's good for you. That can be your lesson. The lesson doesn't have to be super concise. It could be a reflection of your day and what you learned and 3 things that you can take from it. I'll leave different lessons down below so it'll inspire you, but everything you do is probably teaching you something. And how are you doing this in all categories of your life? In relationships with people, at work, with your health, with working out, with food, with your spiritual self. How do you reconnect to yourself? What have you learned about that? Is writing something that you do as a spiritual practice where you are connecting with yourself and therefore a higher power? How is this existence that you are creating being developed? Those are the lessons that you can write down. So if we take these 3 things into consideration when we look at the world around us, we'll start to capture the moment by moment decisions that are becoming our life. Write it down, see the progress, and as the pages start to be filled, you'll feel the change in your own life. And one day you may have hundreds of journals, but start with 1 page today and see where you get. This doesn't have to be something that takes up 3 hours every day. Dedicate 5 minutes to it. And you can hit every single one of these in 5 minutes. You can write down 2 things you're grateful for. You can write down 1 thing that you learned that day and 1 thing that you would change or that you really liked about that day. In 5 minutes, you can write all those things down. Write the date. That is something that I wish I could go back and do a little bit more of, is writing the dates on different entries. I did it for most of them, but there was some things that I didn't, and I wish that I had those days. But again, I don't really go back to it anymore, so it doesn't really matter. But if this is something that you're doing for the first time, write the date down, write a few of those things down, and over time you'll start to add more. You'll start to see what doesn't work for you. Maybe you want to have a longer gratitude list and maybe consolidate the lessons and how you would change things in your day through those lessons. Take it into your own. There's also so many other ways that you can go about writing, but if you're just getting into this, or if you've done it for a long time and you want a refresher, try it out. But this world is yours, and I hope that you got something out of today's video. We will continue this journey, but have an amazing day.